When we were young, we all would go outside, maybe sit in a circle, we'd sing some songs, play some games, and have the times of our lives. But did you know that the songs that you were probably singing, the little nursery rhymes, they probably had a really dark meaning behind them, and you had no idea? One of these was Ring Around the Rosie. So this whole rhyme, nursery rhyme, was actually based on the Black Plague. Now, if you think about it, the first lyric, Ring Around the Rosie, that actually had to do with a rash that people would get when they had the Black Plague. And then pockets full of posies. Posies were a flower that were used to cover up the stench of death. So that was what people wore in their pockets to make everything seem happy when really things were going pretty poorly. And then pockets of ashes, we all fall down. That kind of speaks for itself, but the premise of the whole rhyme is actually about the Black Death. Another rhyme, nursery rhyme game that people would always sing was London Bridge. So London Bridge is falling down. That had a few different versions, but one of the versions, it was London Bridge is falling down, My Fair Lady, and it also talked about take the key and lock her up. So this was speculated that it was actually about immurement. Now, basically, people used to think that the bridge would collapse and they would fall down, and people wanted to make human sacrifices to ensure that the bridge wouldn't fall, and so take a key and lock her up. So they would sacrifice women through immurement, which is basically they would lock people up in a room until they died. So it is speculated that people would take women and they would, adulterers, and they would put them in the walls of the bridge and they would seal them up and they would die in things, which is, there's no real proof behind it, but it's an interesting thing to sing about, So that's another one. And then finally, there's Mary, Mary, Quite Contrary, which is less of a game, but it's definitely a rhyme that was very popular. And basically this has to do with Mary Tudor, otherwise known as Bloody Mary. So basically, Mary was the daughter of King Henry VIII, and she ended up killing upwards of 300 people who refused to convert to her Protestant faith. So basically, Mary, Mary, Quite Contrary, how does your garden grow? The garden is actually referring to the graveyard. And then silver bells and cockle shells, which is another line in the rhyme. Those were instruments of torture. So silver bells were thumb screws that would crush your hands when they were locked inside of them. And then cockle shells are a different thing that you should look up by yourself. And then pretty maids all in a row. That has to do with guillotines, which were also known as maidens at the time. So that's where the connection is, and they would line them up in a row. So that is the background of Mary, Mary, Quite Contrary. So to kind of overcap, I think that a lot of things can be made to have other separate meanings, and it's sometimes interesting to go and look back and see what they are actually made for. But at the end of the day, you can interpret these 3 rhymes as however you would want to, and you don't have to ruin what you thought of them as a child, but it's also fun and interesting to go back and see what the true meaning of things are. And it's just crazy because the more you think about it, everything is not what it seems.